Hey, how's it going? It's Tim Brown again, and I'm here to talk to you about media queries. It's all about making your website look good on mobile as well. So you can have one website that works for desktop, and if people go to that URL on their phone, its sizes and things are modified in a way that works for mobile phone. And that starts with how we do our CSS. So I'm going to go ahead and show you how we get started with optimizing for mobile. All right, so you can see this, decent looking website. It's still coming together here, but when we go down to mobile size, stuff gets weird. It doesn't look good. So this is what it would look like on a phone, basically. And it doesn't look super clean. There's like a button that's, these styles work for desktop, but when the size of the browser, and if we're looking at it on the phone, it would look like this. When it gets smaller, it looks bad. So let's go ahead and fix that, eh? All right, so we've got our first media query here. What I want to do is start with the @ symbol. @ media is how you'll start your media queries. @ media, in this case, we'll say for screen and I'm going to do a parentheses, max dash width 768 pixels, because this is kind of a common denomination for anything that's mobile underneath 768 pixels. So you see we got open parentheses max dash width, and then 768 pixels, close the parentheses, and then we're going to do a bracket and tab out. So tab that down here, and then what we need to do here is if I look at this again, what is the problem here? What is that problem? Well, we want these columns to be 100% instead of trying to be 33%, right? So I just say 3 dash columns open bracket width colon 100%. So now when the max width of the browser is 768, so anything under 768 pixels wide, 3 columns will be 100% width. See how that works? Just kind of look at this for a second. Anything under, so if it's max width, it's anything under 768. If it's min width, M-I-N, width, it would be anything over 768. So that's kind of how to think of it. So let's get it back to max width 768. 3 columns, width is 100%. And I want a little space underneath each one now that they're going to be stacked on top of each other. So I'm going to say margin dash bottom is 30 pixels, not percent. All right, so Command S. Let's take a look at that. That's all you really need to understand, at least the basics of media queries. I'm going to do a couple more things just to kind of make it a little bit more clear. One of those things, so this is pretty exciting though, right? Now you're writing media queries. If you're able to kind of follow along and reproduce this, you can write your first media query, which I think media queries are really cool because then we're thinking about how to make it work for different devices. Has to be mobile friendly if it's a modern website. If it's not, it's a pile of garbage. So remember that, pile of garbage. All right, so the other thing there that looked really bad, right, was these buttons. So let's fix that. I'm gonna go .cta, which is the class that we use for those buttons. And we're gonna say display block, meaning they stack on top of each other instead of trying to be side by side. And then I want the text inside of them to be centered, because display block generally makes things fill the screen. So if I do this, let's see what it looks like. Okay, so now you've got them filling the screen, and you've also have this text centered within them. So this looks pretty, it looks better. But there's still problems. So let's add a couple more things. I want that nav, this top area, to be a little bit taller so that it has a background here. So we're going to say nav min height 120 pixels. So min height is a great attribute that allows you to make sure that it's at least that tall. And if the content is taller, it can go taller. Min height 120 pixels. And then let's see how that looks. And then we have one more thing to do on this, which is I'm going to use absolute positioning to place this, because really we just need it to be in a certain spot on mobile for this simple example. So let's grab that class. I'm going to take the nav ul li last child here, and I'm going to make that be positioned absolute. Position absolute. So that means wherever in the browser, it goes exactly there. It's not based on the other things it's by, which is what the normal kind of default positioning. It's position relative, which means relative to the other things it's by. That's a little confusing, but you'll get it over time. Position absolute, and then we go top 40 pix and right 0 pix, and then it's within that browser. You can see it will pop up right there. So now we have this kind of call to action next to the logo, and the nav is beneath it. And then what do we need to do? We've got the problem with this still. I mean, this is okay, right? But the problem is there's a gigantic amount of space, which made sense on desktop, but it doesn't make sense here. So how do we get rid of that? Well, we take that class inside of this media query. We're still inside the brackets, right? Every time we want to make sure there's one bracket outside of what we're doing, so that the media query is still using, that we're still using that media query. Background div, and we're going to say padding instead of gigantic amount on top. It says like 250 pixels before. We're going to say padding 50 pix, sides 30 pix, and the bottom we're going to say 50 pix as well. So there you go. And actually, we don't even need that third one. I'm going to Command S and save it, because that first one includes top and bottom. So now there's a mobile design using media queries. We're stacking divs, we're stacking buttons, and we're starting to have a little bit of more mobile friendly layout for the menu. And it's kind of, the first step here to making sure that this site will look okay on mobile phone. And I really appreciate you watching, and join me for the next video, where we'll be talking about your first steps in coding from an existing visual design. Thanks. Bye.